From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Henry Moeran from BBC Sport, where here in England we've been following a thrilling couple of series between England and India. What a test match we saw at Headingley to kick things off between England's men and India's women dominating the opening stages of that T20 series between the two sides that will be meeting up in that World Cup in India later on this year.
Henry, nice to have you on board. Jim Maxwell for the ABC in Sydney. It's cold here, not like the heat wave that they had in London, but Australia keeps playing cricket. And actually, they won the other day. So look out, they might win again.
Henry, as Jim said, wonderful to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Charu Sharma for Akashvani. I'm in Bangalore, my final day here. I leave for Kerala tomorrow to do the auction for their state league and then rush to Pondicherry, this wonderful, quaint union territory in the east coast of India, to do their Premier League for the next 3 weeks. So plenty of action for me. But of course, all cricketing eyes on the second test between England and India.
Well, lovely to be with you both. The life of an elite fast bowler can be a hard one. Just ask Jasprit Bumrah or Jofra Archer, both sitting out of the second test of the Tendulkar-Anderson Trophy. India are managing Bumrah's fitness, while Archer is back in the England Test squad after an injury-plagued 4 years. We'll start with India and Bumrah. Charu, it's widely known he was only ever going to play in 3 of the test matches of this series, but with India 1-0 down and the gap between the first and second tests 8 days, the longest that there's going to be between any tests in this series, were you perhaps surprised to see India rest him now? What about the reaction to that decision? What's that been like in India?
Well, I'm certainly among the many who are surprised, and you mentioned the two most important reasons. One, of course, the fact that India's down 0-1 in the test match, and of course this long rest period between the two. Now, yes, it was said earlier that he might play only 3 of 5. It wasn't a certainty. But I just wonder if there are still niggling physical problems with Bumrah, and that's why he's been forced to stay away from the second test match. Otherwise, of course, the other reason I can think of is the lack of wickets that he collected in the second innings of the first test match. Maybe that was a pointer too, that he's not 100%. Luckily, India have a few options, and they're not too bad either. I believe Akashdeep, of course, I know is a very accurate bowler, not in the same class as Bumrah. Bumrah is the best in the world. But for India to leave him out at this stage, it really could be an injury problem that we're not all 100% aware of. Otherwise, to stay without Bumrah and go 2 down in the series, what's the point bringing him back thereafter?
There certainly was some talk that he wanted to play at Lord's, and some suggestion that the drama of a Lord's test match would be something that would be a focal point for India and for Bumrah as a man himself. I mean, is there any potential truth in that, do you think?
No, I'm not so sure. And we cannot be going for records and just because Lord's is the kind of ground it is and to get on the Lord's board and such like. I also wonder if there was a sneaky suspicion, or the way they read the pitch here at Edgbaston, that maybe it's a lot more spin-friendly. And if we're going to ask Bumrah to keep breaking his back on a pitch that he might be a little less effective on, then that too may be a reason why they said, all right, we'll make you rest for this test match and come back in the third and perhaps then the fifth. But it doesn't sound very logical, but obviously there's a lot of protection going on because he's a national asset right now, best in the business. And if he's not 100%, then they're just giving him more time to recover, even at the risk of going 2 down.
Jim, no matter who you support, as a cricket lover, and you've seen some of the greats from Australia down the years, Thompson, Lilly, Johnson, the list goes on, McGrath, Lee, whoever you want to add to that list. But seeing Jofra Archer back on the cusp of playing test match cricket for the wider game is an exciting thought.
Is hugely exciting if he can get on the park and perform. And you'd have to be a little concerned about his durability even when he comes back, which I suppose will be at Lord's. And that's where he did inflict a few blows on the Australians some years ago when he was more in his prime. So let's hope that his body can stand up to whatever is put in front of him, and from here on he's able to play in the Ashes later in the year. But first things first, yes, very exciting to have him there after his elbow problems, his back. He broke his thumb for the IPL. So, yeah, he, like so many of his kind over the years, is a very exciting prospect. It reminds me in some way of the damage that was done when England were in Australia under Ray Illingworth. Sorry, Henry, it's a bit before your time, I know, 50 years ago. And John Snow won the Ashes, really, for England in that series. So if a combination of Archer, maybe Wood, if he's okay, if they can put together enough bursts of brilliant fast bowling, we're looking forward to some exciting cricket on the back of the old Baz ball as well.
Well, it's going to be thrilling if England do manage to bring those two fast bowlers to Australia. Just a word on what Archer has been through: 2 elbow surgeries, multiple stress fractures to his back, also surgery on his hand, of all things, after cutting himself cleaning a fish tank. So he's not played red ball cricket since May 2021, only returning to first-class action with Sussex last month, and he's bowled fewer than 20 overs of red ball cricket before being named in this England squad for the India series. So we will wait and see how he goes if he does get that opportunity at Lord's. One man, meanwhile, who has plenty of experience of the highs and lows of being one of the world's best fast bowlers, is the former South African international Vernon Philander. He retired in 2020, aged 35, played 64 test matches, claiming more than 200 test wickets in a career that spanned just over 8 years. His career hampered by several injuries, though, including torn ankle ligaments in 2015, sidelining him for 9 months. That happened, incidentally, during a warm-up game of football while on tour with South Africa in India, also suffering a hamstring tear in his final test match. I've been speaking to him to get his thoughts on how England and India are managing Archer and Bumrah, respectively. First, though, I started by asking how he's feeling a week on from turning the grand old age of 40.
Geez, I tell you what, time has flown. It seems like the other day I've left the cricket field when I was only in my early 30s. But yeah, the big 40, the naughty 40s, I got reminded on the 24th of June. So, I mean, nothing has changed on my side. I still feel like a 28-year-old. So, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into being 40.
Well, this is the interesting thing, isn't it, as a fast bowler, because the toll on the body is always such a focal point. And you have had 5 years since retirement. I mean, how does the body cope when you wake up in the morning? Is there that soreness, that stiffness?
Yeah, I think once I hit about, 32, I mean, it was a completely different ball game. I think up until then, you can wake up, you can literally just, bowl a couple of balls in warm up and you'll be ready to go. But I think ever since you hit that early 30s, the body reacts differently. It takes a lot longer to warm up. And yeah, I think also it takes a lot more in terms of, gym work, in terms of, making sure that, you get the body obviously, well conditioned, for match day. So, I mean, the older you get, the more you definitely feel it. And I'd say it definitely takes a lot more work, to be put in order to be ready, the older you get.
Yours was a career that saw injuries, and as a fast bowler's lot, that tends to be the way. There often are a number of injuries for bowlers. Is that just something you accept? If you play at the high level, you're a fast bowler, you are going to face times on the sidelines because of the exertion that's put on your body.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people refer to workload. I refer to it as stress load. I think, the amount of stress, we put the bodies through, ankles, knees. I think I certainly start to feel a couple of aches and pains now as you grow older. But I think it's something that you make peace with, especially, as a seam bowler, that, injuries are part of your career. I'm still having to hear one bowler that has gone through his career without any injury. So it is part and parcel of the job at the end of the day. But I think the more you can, focus on your weak points. I think, these days, there's so much, technology available. Obviously, with teams having, biokinetics, physios alongside. So I think in terms of, those workloads that we're talking about, these days there's a lot more research going into obviously keeping players in the park, but ultimately, the amount of cricket that's been played at the moment, unfortunately, we're still seeing those high volumes of injuries. I think in the modern day, there's a lot of emphasis being placed on gym work as opposed to, when we obviously, I mean, my era or maybe the era before that, we bowled to keep fit. So I think times have definitely changed. But I also look at, the volume of work that's, the volume of work and the amount of stress that are being placed on players. And for me, you almost have to say, we need to manage players a lot better. I think, accents varies, obviously. You'll have a Jimmy Anderson that can perhaps play between 10 and 12 test matches a year, as opposed to a Jofra Archer, which might only be able to give you between 6 and 8 test matches a year because of, the uniqueness of the accent. So, yeah, there's a lot of things to take into account when we talk about, obviously, fast bowlers.
So, Jofra Archer returning to England colours, and I think they're clearly desperate to get him back playing again. He's barely played with a red ball in the last 4 years. I mean, did it surprise you hearing that he was potentially going to be playing Test cricket for England?
Yeah, I think I'm twofold when it comes to a Jofra Archer selection. I think one, the excitement that it brings to the game. We all know what he can do. He can deliver on the big stage. Obviously, bowling rapidly. The only concern that I have is exactly what you've pointed out, is the amount of cricket. And that for me, we rewind 10 years back, where your bowling loads was ultimately bowling overs in the nets as opposed to, gym work these days. So that would be the only concern for me. How much time has he had on his legs? How many overs? How many spells? Because, like we all know, Test match cricket is ultimately about bowling spells. So that would be the only red flag for me. I always talk about reference points. You get to over number 18 and all of a sudden, you need to go and, go into those reserves. Have you done enough work on the legs, to be able to give you that confidence of bowling, 18 plus overs in an inning. So those are all question marks, which you will face at some point in time.
What advice would you give to somebody returning after a spell on the sidelines?
Number one, you're going to have to try and feel your body, and you're going to have to see, and obviously, get a sense of where you're at personally. For me, it is obviously, to try and get there as quickly as possible and to find out at sort of what medium can you operate at. Look, you'll obviously have to come back for spells later on in the day, but you have to also, eliminate, whatever injuries, concerns you have in the back of your mind, because I think ultimately they can weigh you down. And the last thing you want is, you have a bit of a niggle. Like we all do. And I've played through plenty of niggles in my career. But I think, when you pick up a little niggle in a game, that can be the only concern. How far can you really stretch yourself, with that sort of niggle?
You formed a formidable bowling partnership with Dale Steyn, whose workload was managed quite carefully. A.B. de Villiers spoke about that previously. And I suppose it takes a lot for a fast bowler psychologically to be aware of the fact they have to rein themselves in, and you have to have teammates around you saying, look, just hold it back a little bit.
Yeah, I think Dale's probably the exception to the case. I think if you look at the way that he's operated with a new ball, operating probably sort of mid 130s, early 140s, but then he really had the ability to step it up. So yeah, exactly what you're talking about. I think it's also understanding his body, understanding his skill set that he brings to the party, and in that way you can manage your way and your workload through the day. So again, I will say it, Jofra Archer, it's important for him to understand, the workload, the intensity, which is going to be operating in, because that's going to be a key element.
And then comes the tussle between those that see the value of the win on the field and those that are very aware of the fact that you've got the risk of injury. And Jasprit Bumrah is the name that you think about. We knew ahead of this England Test series that potentially he was going to play 3 of the 5 matches. India lose the first one, and suddenly there is that pressure. Well, where do you try and fit him in? And do you try and overstretch him with the risk that one more big injury could curtail a quite brilliant career, potentially?
Yeah, I'm going to highlight again, when you talk about these quicks, you almost have to put the result out of question. But at the end of the day, it is international sports, and you want to see these guys, operate at an optimum, at their very best. But again, there's so much at risk. I think for me, you look at a Bumrah, you look at a Jofra Archer, and when we talk international cricket, these are the names that you want to see form part of any lineup, come that very first, coin being tossed up. So again, I think it's going to be important. Bumrah as well. There's rumors of with this extended break that he's shaping up quite well in terms of his recovery. But again, I spoke about the workload. It's important to manage these guys. I think the 2 names that we busy speaking about, very unique accents. I think, again, if it's a more traditional accent, a bit like Jimmy, the conversation is going to change because, you can stretch Jimmy a little further. But these 2 guys, they're going to bring you, I make no mistake, they're going to win you games. They're going to win you matches of cricket. But again, you need to sit down and say, cool, you know what, how far am I willing to stretch these guys, number one, but also how much can the body actually tolerate?
Well, Vernon Philander talking there about fast bowling, the strains and the struggles on the body. And speaking about overs in the legs, Charu, and this is an interesting side of all of this, isn't it? Because today's schedule, today's modern cricketing world sees so much franchise cricket where players are bowling with 4-over spells and really intense 4-over spells, not like the rhythmical long stints in the dirt that we used to see. It is a different world now.
Yes, Henry, but I see a whole lot of old-timers talking about the fact that they bowled a lot more red ball cricket, maybe 10, 12 overs at a time, because of all the domestic cricket and other leagues that they played along with test match cricket. When we talk about franchise cricket, really, I think during the warm-up, the bowlers bowl a lot more than they bowl inside a T20 match because it's only 4 overs. And yes, it's intense, but it's not 4 at a trot either. It's like 1 or 2 at the top, 1 maybe at the middle, and 1 at the end. So that load really is very light. But, just back to the warm-up for a T20. And remember, the franchise matches are not every day either. It's like once in 3 or 4 days. So you bowl 4 overs, maybe 2 overs at a time, once in 4 days or 3 days. That doesn't seem very heavy, does it? I honestly don't think franchise cricket is the problem here.
Jim, back in the day when Lilly and Thompson were going through their vigorous warm-ups and gym routines, I jest, it was a different world then when those bowlers were doing their thing.
Lilly looked after himself. Tomo didn't look after himself at all. Look, there wasn't the management. There wasn't the backroom setup that there is now. I mean, I think it is about the management, preparation. The only problem, as we're seeing nowadays, is when you have a 5-test series, normally played over 7 to 8 weeks, you're going to get wear and tear. You know the only way to get out of that? Make sure you win in 3 days.
Well, that's all we've got time for here on this week's Stumped on Akash Varney. Don't forget that you can follow us on X. We are at BBCWS Sport and use the hashtag BBC Stumped. Also, check us out on YouTube. Go to the BBC World Service YouTube channel. My thanks to Charu Sharma and to Jim Maxwell and to all of you for listening. We'll speak to you soon.
Stumped is a BBC Sport production for the BBC World Service in association with ABC and Akash Varney.